One person who knows his pain is former Shell Oil president John Hofmeister. John sat through 6 political hearings during his tenure at Shell and says he has the scars to prove it. He is currently the founder and CEO of Citizens for Affordable Energy and author of the book Why We Hate the Oil Companies. He is joining us now from Houston. Welcome, John. We're so glad to have you on the program. Today is obviously a big day for BP execs on Capitol Hill. You've been there. We want to ask you what that feels like in a minute, but I want to know first, to what extent is today about BP, and to what extent is it about the future of the deep water drilling business?
I think the focus today will really be on BP. What happened? How did it happen? How could you do this to us? Is the real question that I think Congress will be asking. How dare you do this to us? In fact, will probably be the tone of the meeting. But ultimately, it is about the future of energy production in this country and whether we as a nation are going to be able to manage the risk of producing our own energy, or if we're going to farm that out to other countries for us.
John, you've been making the case over the past few days that maybe BP should have been pushing back against the U.S. government, possibly alienating it. So did the company do the right thing, suspending the dividend for 3 quarters, agreeing to this $20 billion fund? Some people might view it as a total capitulation.
I think what made the difference and why I brought up the idea of BP pushing back is if the administration demanded all the money up front, that would really put pressure on the enterprise to try to come up with that much money all of a sudden. I think the fact that the administration and BP mutually agreed to a multi-year program makes it a much more doable program, both in terms of the enterprise and protecting shareholders for the future, also in terms of the White House achieving its political objectives.
John, I know you just mentioned that we risk losing production of our own energy if deepwater drilling goes to other territories. But if anything, doesn't this BP incident just show that it's not safe for anyone and that technology should be focused away from fossil fuels, an argument we've heard a lot?
The first thing we have to find out is what actually happened with the Deepwater Horizon and the Macondo well. Until we know that, I would rather rely on 35,000 wells.
Honestly, doesn't it just seem like it's unsafe? No matter who's to blame, it seems like an unsafe process.
No, we had 35,000 wells safely drilled over 40 years. I wouldn't call that unsafe. I'd call the Macondo blowout a collection of bad decisions, bad judgments, which should have been arrested early in the process somewhere in the BP system. But to say that the whole industry should be labeled with this one blowout, I think is wrong and unfair.
Well, John, look, we have to try our best to be fair. To say that there is not something systemically wrong with the industry reminds us of what happened on Wall Street, and we all knew that there was systemic risk there. Aren't there things that the industry should be doing to guarantee that we don't face another situation like the one we do right now in the Gulf?
If we're going to use hydrocarbons for any source of energy, there will always be risk. There is no way to completely eliminate the risk involving hydrocarbons because you are destroying molecules and you are in an excavation business. That carries inherent risk. To mitigate that risk, everything that can be done on the prevention side should be done. And I think the testimony from the 5 executives in the congressional hearing on Tuesday pointed out some of the flaws in the BP design process, which other companies are not involved in. So to say it's systemic is incorrect, because they pointed out how differently they approach well design and other factors. So really getting to the bottom of how did BP blow this project so badly is really, I think, an isolated incident. And in the fullness of time, I think this will be an anomaly, because the drilling techniques are not just used in the Gulf of Mexico. They're used all over the world. If we can make it safer, we must. And we must find ways to deal with this deep water calamity going forward. But that will take time to figure that out.
John, were you surprised? You just mentioned some of these other oil CEOs. Were you surprised with, for example, the CEO of Chevron, how he basically said, had it been Chevron, it would not have happened? Does this just focus in, let's say, the negligence on BP's part?
I think it raises the question of how in the world did so many bad decisions get made in that compressed time frame of that one project. I think BP has some serious explaining to do, from the very design of the project to the execution of the cementing and testing job on the rig the day of the blowout.
John.